Welcome back to the David Pakman Show. It's Thursday, and we are back with Denis Campbell, Worldview with Denis Campbell. Denis is editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine, the book Egypt Unshackled, the numerous ebooks including The Vagina Wars, The Vagina Wars Unleashed, and who knows how many more of these there will be. Denis Campbell is with us, and I think it's just of paramount importance at this point to talk about the Mitt Romney trip to Europe, which most of it happened during my vacation. I was following it closely. What would you say, amidst a wealth of gaffes, was the most astounding gaffe? Forget about two Americans, but over on your side of the pond, what stood out the most?
Well, I think if, taking, the obvious ones aside, and let's face it, my press here, or the tabloid press in particular, tends to be a little bit unfair. They're kind of like a dog with a bone. What I saw as the biggest gaffe here in the UK was the fact that you have a conservative, at least in theory, Republican, which is very similar to the UK Conservative Tory party, coming to meet with the leader of the Tory party, the Prime Minister of England, David Cameron. You would expect those two to be thick as thieves, to really get along exceptionally well. And at the end of it, have David Cameron really attack Mitt Romney for his gaffes, and for several members, cabinet ministers, to turn around and say things such as, we really do prefer dealing with President Obama, all the way through to his gaffes in Israel, calling the Palestinian people all sorts of interesting names and calling that a class system, and then going on to Poland, where his press staff went absolutely absurd. You can just rack up point after point after point on a trip that was designed to be a slam dunk and a very easy thing for him. I mean, he was going strictly to our best of allies and into situations where he should have excelled. To do so poorly is really an astonishing thing to see.
Yeah, so just to get people up to speed if they're not familiar, the big gaffe that I was reading about that took place in the UK was when he said he's just not sure if London is ready for the Olympics. And then, of course, the response was, London is ready. What does Mitt Romney, what does Mitt Romney know about what we're doing? Was there anything, is that the main gaffe that he made there? Is there more?
Well, that's where he started. I mean, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall because of, I don't know how much of the opening ceremonies you were able to see when you were on holiday, but there was a wonderful 11-minute tribute to the National Health Service, our so-called socialized system of medicine, which everybody here and pretty much everybody around the world that is ever exposed to it absolutely loves, under the guise of children's literature. R.M. Barry, the creator of Peter Pan, who donated all of his royalties to Ormond Street Hospital. So you sit there and you look at all of these things piled on. I wish there had been a cutaway camera just to see the look on his face, because that's essentially the argument of Romney care. Everywhere this man turned, he just seemed to step into it. And the two people you don't ever want to get on the wrong side of because of their rapier wit are David Cameron and London Mayor Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson stood on the stage in front of anywhere between 60 and 70,000 people in Hyde Park the night before and said, there's this man, Mitt Romney, who says we're not ready. Are we ready, London? And, you could hear the screams all the way here 3 hours away in Wales. It was just an astonishing thing. It's like being invited as a house guest into someone's home and telling them, gee, your lawn really looks terrible. It's just something you don't do, and the British press had a field day with him.
Yeah, and then Mitt Romney seemed to have been also, then when he went on to Israel, he was praising the Israeli healthcare system in great part because of the great positive effect that government intervention and involvement has had, and the fact that everybody is mandated to have care, which are the exact reasons that he says he's against Obamacare, while at the same time, those are provisions in Obamacare that are incredibly similar to Romney Care, which he passed while governor of Massachusetts. I mean, it's layer upon layer of, I don't even call it hypocrisy, because I'm questioning whether he's even being hypocritical. It seems he just has no idea what's going on.
I think there's two things happening there. One, he's being very badly advised. I mean, I've seen this man, Dan Sr., now on telly a number of times, and I just cannot get over the very old, tired, retread neocon lines that he first tries to peddle, as I do see some of the US programs, and I've also seen him on telly here, as well as just the general way in which this man seems to be prepared. It's almost as if he doesn't get or read any briefing papers whatsoever and just tries to do this as a PowerPoint presentation like a CEO would do before a boardroom, except he doesn't know his stuff. And it was just astonishing to see some of the positions he took in Israel regarding Israeli security that past presidents have totally ignored, and it's gone against and in the face of U.S. foreign policy for the last 50 years. It was just astonishing.
Some people I was talking to said, you know what, even though Mitt Romney is running for the presidency, we think that he really deep down just doesn't want to win. In other words, maybe it's some kind of external pressure which got him into this, and lo and behold, he's the nominee all of a sudden, and he's in the thick of it. But that deep down, maybe he doesn't really want to do this. I mean, I don't know. Maybe even he's not aware of it, but it's a subconscious thing. I mean,
I did write something about this on UK Progressive about 2 or 3 months ago, and what I did was I sort of compared the terrible patrician burden that a lot of these second-generation firstborn sons have. I mean, George Bush never looked particularly happy inside of his skin. And, you know, if you look at even Al Gore, as much as we adore what he's done on the climate side, having to follow in the footsteps of his senator father and then feeling almost obligated to run for president, was his heart really in that race? And now you have Mitt Romney following in the footsteps of a very popular at the time and remaining popular George Romney. And it is this burden that sort of falls on them. And it makes you wonder whether or not they really do want to be, or if they're just doing it out of a sense of duty. And I noticed this particularly and drew this contrast out when he was going through the primaries. His inability to connect with people on a one-to-one basis or in a group setting that are below him in terms of status. There's no problem talking to other CEOs, other business people doing a deal. But when he has to become and tries to become, even worse, average Joe six-pack, it fails miserably for him. I mean, he doesn't even look comfortable in blue jeans and dress shirt, which is what he's trying to wear on the campaign trail to make him look like he's every man. He just can't pull it off.
Yeah, he should take some lessons from Joe the plumber, a.k.a. Samuel Wurzbacher, the guy who is not actually a plumber. Maybe that would be better, an improvement.
Well, and that comes back to the question that we had in 2008 when we were looking at the campaign. Do you want your presidential candidate to be competent, or do you want to be somebody that you could sit down and have a beer with? And I don't think the vast majority of the American public is really that concerned about having a beer with Barack Obama or Mitt Romney, but they do want to be assured that there's a level of competence operating there.
Yeah, and God forbid that somebody puts some donuts on the table if you're having a beer with Mitt Romney. A guy wouldn't even know what it is. He'd want to run tests to identify those chocolate goodies. We've been talking with Denis Campbell, editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. Great to have you back, Denis.
Yeah, it's good to be back, and the next book is coming out in the next week or so. It's about the Mormon question, so I'm calling it Magic Underwear in the Situation Room, so it should be quite interesting. We're going to talk about Mitt and his religion and whether the Christian conservatives are going to be able to follow him, as well as all of the issues around the issue of race within that particular
Oh, that's
religion.
great stuff. I can't wait to read it. Okay, let's take a break, and we'll be back with plenty more after this. Stay tuned.